A Dill Pickle is a short story by Katherine Mansfield. This modern feminist fiction was published in 1917. It is a single cafe scene in St. James's Street in London, England, at a time when a revolution happened in Russia. A Dill Pickle is an anonymous third-person focalized narrated about a woman named Vera who meets a former lover after 6 years and the communication gap becomes clear between them. The former beau remains unnamed throughout the tale, and it can be deduced that he belongs to the upper class of society, eats expensive caviar, travels to exotic locales, his clothes were admirable, has a Russian cigarette case, and speaks in the accent of the upper-class masses. Through carefully selected tales, such as his shift from talking about perfumes to his visit to Russia, he flaunts travel and opulence, aiming to impress Vera with the acquired refinement that he now claims to possess, a stark departure from his admitted immaturity in the past. However, the question arises, does he really become mature and wise now? The male character exudes excessive self-centeredness throughout the short story. Instead of directing his attention towards Vera, he consistently recounts his own life experiences and journeys. Even when Vera contributes to the conversation, his focus remains on himself, exemplified by his recounting of sleeping beneath a cart in his father's yard, attaching an exaggerated significance to the incident despite forgetting the family dog's name. Despite acquiring wealth, he exhibits frugality by insisting, to the waitress with the bill, not charge him for the uneaten cream cake, but the cream has not been touched, he said. Please do not charge me for it. Although in a privileged position to travel all the time, Spain, Corsica, Siberia, Russia, Egypt for vacations, and afford expensive food but still complain about the cost, you could not get 7 shillings into a little pot that size. He boasts about his global travels with friends, only later claiming no friends, perhaps suggesting that the self-serving personality of the man made it impossible to retain meaningful friendships. Also, this selfishness might be a reason for the initial breakup between Vera and him. As the short story ends, the man, still engrossed in himself, fails to realize that Vera has already left. A tinge of sexual tension and desire between Vera and the male protagonist becomes palpable, particularly when Vera becomes somewhat sexually attracted to him. As he spoke, she lifted her head as though she drank something. The strange beast in her bosom began to purr. The beast inside Vera is a symbolic hint at the sexual desire at play here. As he spoke, so lightly, tapping the end of his cigarette against the ashtray, she felt the strange beast that had slumbered so long within her bosom stir, stretch itself, yawn, prick up its ears, and suddenly bound to its feet, and fix its longing, hungry stare upon those faraway places. Despite 6 years apart, it's apparent that she still harbors feelings for him, but even the male character notices, "What a marvelous listener you are when you look at me with those wild eyes." The story's end is noteworthy as the male protagonist symbolically seeks to reignite his connection with Vera by holding onto her glove as he caught up one of her gloves from the table and clutched at it as if that would hold her. What's intriguing is her capacity to manage these emotions, demonstrating an inner determination that prevents her from being deceived again, as all she said was, smiling gently, "How I envy you." The title of this short story captures the idea that certain emotions like desire and nostalgia, much like the pickling process, can prevail and remain potent over time, even though external circumstances and relationships may have changed. Similar to the preservation of a dill pickle, Vera's love for the male protagonist lingers. Additionally, Vera reflects on her past mistakes within the relationship. It is interesting that despite obvious physical and financial attraction towards the male protagonist, Vera has an epiphany that he is yet again not the right person for her, as she realizes that the dill pickle was terribly sour and leaves the cafe. A Dill Pickle probes into the dynamics of power play and resilience in relationships, particularly between men and women. The unnamed male character and Vera, who were once romantically involved, reminisce about their past. However, Vera's circumstances have changed for the worse since their separation. Though belonging to the same social class, she had her cherished piano sold ages ago piano to keep afloat. As a woman navigating a male-dominated society and dealing with the consequences of her past, Vera faces financial hurdles. The male protagonist, with thinly veiled smugness, emphasizes the power imbalance that wealth has snuggled into their dynamic. He deliberately brings up a letter that Vera wrote to the end of their relationship, reminding her of the past. As he somewhat mockingly revisits that letter, I've often thought how I must have bored you. And now I understand so perfectly why you wrote to me as you did, although at the time that letter nearly finished my life. I found it again the other day, and I couldn't help laughing as I read it. It was so clever, such a true picture of me. Mansfield portrays Vera's inner strength as she leaves the table, seemingly trying to retain the last shreds of her dignity from the obvious power imbalance at play. Where the man's overwhelming self-importance is evident at one end, Mansfield also hints at Vera's resilience as a counter-character trait. Despite loneliness and a downhill lifestyle, Vera displays inner strength and restraint by choosing to move forward, even though it might have been financially pragmatic for her to stay and rekindle the relationship with the male protagonist. Throughout the narrative, there's a distinct absence of any indication that the male protagonist has ever taken Vera seriously, whether during their past relationship or in their current conversation at the cafe table. He seems intent on steering the discussion in his preferred direction, conveying a continuous effort to wield control. This subtle manipulation is reminiscent of his past actions, such as silencing Vera by placing his finger on her lips. Mansfield only grants the reader access to Vera's thoughts, perhaps a deliberate choice to emphasize Vera's autonomy and the broader capacity of women to think independently. In the era when the story was written, societal norms often relegated women to subordinate roles, diminishing the perceived relevance of their opinions or thoughts.